The rain fell in steady sheets, not furious, but relentless, like the sky had been holding its breath for too long and finally exhaled grief. It slicked down the city's spires and glass towers, flooding gutters, soaking streets, and turning sidewalks into mirrors of gray. But the man standing outside St. Helena's orphanage didn't flinch. Michael Hawthorne stood still, his umbrella untouched, his suit drenched and clinging to his frame. In his hand was an envelope. Yellowed. Soft at the corners. Addressed to a name that no longer existed in the world, except in memory. Amelia Lancaster. Inside the orphanage, 3 children sat in silence, pressed close together on a worn velvet couch. Their eyes were wide, not with curiosity, but the kind of quiet exhaustion that comes from waiting too long for someone to come and realizing no one ever will. Elsie, the eldest at 9, held a tattered sketchbook to her chest. Jonah, her brother, barely older by a year, sat beside her with his jaw clenched, trying to look braver than he felt. And Milo, the youngest, just 4, curled up under Elsie's arm with his face hidden and his thumb in his mouth. The door creaked open. Michael stepped inside, dragging the storm in with him. Water pooled under his feet, and for a moment, all that could be heard was the slow dripping from his sleeves. Sister Miriam, the head of the orphanage, stood just behind him, her expression caught between disbelief and protest. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hawthorne," she began softly, "but you can't just show up and—" "I'm not leaving without them," he said, without turning to her. His voice was low, unshakable. "They're not, they've only been here for a few months. There's a process. There's—" He turned now, his eyes sharp, his presence a storm of its own. "Then break the process. File the papers. Do whatever needs to be done. But I am not walking away from them. Not this time. Not again." He stepped toward the children slowly, like one might approach a deer that's been hit but hasn't yet fallen. He knelt, his knees soaking the rug, and held out the envelope. "Your mother," he said, struggling to steady his breath, "she once saved me." 3 pairs of eyes stared at him. Unblinking. Unreadable. He unfolded the envelope carefully, revealing a small painting. Watercolor. A woman under a cherry blossom tree, 3 children by her side, unmistakably them. But the date in the corner of the canvas, it was painted 10 years before any of them were born. Elsie's eyes flickered. "She told us," she whispered, "that if we were ever alone, a man with tired eyes would come." Michael felt his chest cave. He looked down at the painting again, then up at them, at Elsie, who was too old for her age, at Jonah, whose fists were always ready to protect, and Milo, who still believed in monsters but didn't know the real ones wore ties and vanished into boardrooms. He had missed too much. He rose slowly and turned to Sister Miriam. "Start the adoption." She hesitated. "Why now? Why these 3? He looked back once more, not at them, but through them. Into a past that had never stopped bleeding. "Because their mother, she once gave me the only moment in my life that ever felt real. And I wasn't there for her when she needed someone. I can't undo that. But I can do this." Outside, the limousine waited. The storm began to die. Inside, Michael sat with them for the first time. Across from him, Elsie held Milo's hand. Jonah leaned his head against the window, pretending not to look at him but watching every move. Michael reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded note. He unfolded it slowly. The ink had faded, but her handwriting was still strong, still graceful. "Michael, you once told me you built things that made money, but never anything that mattered. So I left you something that does. 3 someones. No name. No date. Just truth." He looked up. The car was moving now, and the city blurred past them like time skipping backward. He looked at Elsie again. "Did she ever tell you who I was?" She studied him for a moment. "Only that you were someone she once believed in. Someone who forgot, but would remember." Michael closed his eyes. He remembered. The bridge. The rain. The night he let her go because the world told him ambition was more important than love. Because he was too proud to admit he was afraid. And now she was gone. But she left behind the proof of who she really was, a woman who didn't leave him pain. She left him purpose. Jonah broke the silence. Where are we going? Michael met his eyes. Home, he said. He didn't know where that was yet. But for the first time in years, he wanted to find out. With them. Because they weren't just children. They were echoes. Of her. Of the life he should have had. And maybe, just maybe, of the man he still had a chance to become. As the city lights flickered against the windows, Michael reached for Milo's hand. The boy didn't pull away. Somewhere far above the clouds, the rain finally stopped. And beneath it, 4 people began something that felt like the beginning. Even if it started with an ending. The apartment was small, cold, and made entirely of waiting. Waiting for footsteps that never returned. Waiting for keys that never turned in the lock again. Waiting for a mother who said she'd be right back, and then disappeared into the crack between days and never came home. Elsie knew what silence felt like when it got too loud. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the weight of Milo's shallow breathing in the dark. The creak of the hallway floor when Jonah got up at night to check the front door. The silence of a dinner made only of tap water and crackers. That was the kind of silence that wrapped around your bones like a second skin. She was only 9, but she had learned to lie like an adult. "We're fine," she'd say, when the landlord came knocking. "She's coming back soon," she'd whisper, every night before Milo fell asleep. She probably just got caught up at work, she told Jonah, even when the calendar on the wall had marked 12 days without a single word. The food was gone. The money, a few crumpled bills folded inside the shoe box beneath the couch, had been spent on baby wipes and the cheapest canned soup she could carry. And now the lights flickered, warning them that even electricity was beginning to give up on them too. Jonah was the one who said it out loud. "She's not coming back." His voice didn't tremble. He was 12, old enough to know better. Old enough to stop pretending. But his fists were clenched, and Elsie could tell it hurt him more than he'd ever let Milo see. Elsie didn't argue. She just looked at the sketchbook in her lap and turned to the last page. Her mother had drawn it before she disappeared, a man under a cherry blossom tree, holding something in his hand. His face was unfinished, the lines of his coat blurred with water. But even through the soft brushstrokes, the figure looked certain. That was the last painting. She'd found it the day after Amelia vanished. Folded between the pages of the sketchbook, with a single line written in her mother's handwriting. "If everything disappears, he'll come." There was no name. No address. Nothing to hold on to except that image and a feeling that maybe, just maybe, the story wasn't over yet. Milo was too young to understand. He still asked for their mother every morning. Did she go to get milk? Elsie nodded. Yes. She probably found a store that's really far away. Is she bringing cereal too? Of course. Your favorite. And then Milo would smile, small and hopeful, and wrap his arms around her waist like he was clinging to the truth. Jonah had stopped asking questions. He just paced the apartment like he was trying to outwalk the fear. Sometimes he sat by the door, listening. Other times he stared at the window, trying to read the world outside like it might confess something. But the world didn't care. They were 3 kids in a forgotten neighborhood, in a building that no one visited unless something had gone very wrong. Their mother hadn't left an emergency contact. No one came knocking. No school notices. No police. Just time. Time, and cold. And the memory of a woman who used to paint futures with trembling fingers and a soft hum in her voice. Elsie still remembered her mother's lullabies. Not the words, those had always shifted like wind. But the tune. The way her voice would dip when she reached the high note, like even the melody was fragile and tired. She hummed it now, as she rocked Milo to sleep on the couch. Jonah sat nearby, watching the shadows. "I think we should go," he said quietly. "Find help." "Help will come," she replied. His jaw tightened. "You keep saying that. But no one's looking for us. No one even knows we exist." She held up the sketchbook, her hands shaking. "He does." Jonah stared at it. "You don't even know who that is. It could be anyone. Some stranger. Just another dream Mom had." Elsie blinked fast, holding the tears back with everything she had. "It's not a dream." But even as she said it, she felt the weight of his doubt pressing against her chest. Because what if he was right? What if all of it, the paintings, the stories, the whispered promises, had just been a way for Amelia to soften the blow of a life that was unraveling in slow motion? She looked at Milo, already half asleep, a dried milk stain on his cheek, and whispered, "She wouldn't leave us." Jonah didn't answer. But that night, when the wind howled against the windows like something lost and angry, Elsie didn't sleep. She sat on the floor with the sketchbook open, tracing the lines of that man's coat again and again. And then she turned the page. Something new. She hadn't noticed it before. A folded piece of paper, thin as breath, tucked into the back cover. She unfolded it with trembling fingers. It wasn't a painting. It was a letter. No greeting. No explanation. Just one line. "Michael Hawthorne. He doesn't know it yet. But he belongs to you." Her heart dropped. Michael. She'd heard that name once. Maybe twice. In a story her mother told while painting the sky one evening on the fire escape. "He's the kind of man who forgets what matters until it's almost too late," Amelia had said. "But if he remembers in time, he'll move mountains for love." Elsie didn't know what mountains meant. But right now, it sounded like something they needed. She whispered his name once, like a prayer. And in a quiet corner of the city, Michael Hawthorne was already on his way. Driven not by logic, or law, or even guilt, but by a memory he had buried so deep, it took the eyes of a child in a painting to unearth it again. A painting Amelia had left behind like a breadcrumb. 3 children. 1 future. And the man who would finally arrive, wet, broken, changed, but still capable of love. Michael didn't sleep the night after the orphanage. Even when the children had been safely driven back to the penthouse suite he hadn't used in years. Even when Milo fell asleep on the leather couch, his tiny fingers still clutching a stuffed bear missing one eye. Even when Elsie stared at him for minutes too long, untrusting, observing, trying to decode a stranger who claimed to be more than the world had ever shown her. He stood alone in the dark kitchen, staring at the envelope Amelia had once sealed with trembling hands. He had opened it. Finally. After all these years. After all the excuses and fears and questions he wasn't ready to face. And now, those words echoed in his chest like thunder across a desert. "You once told me you wanted to build something that mattered. So I painted a future for you. 3 hearts. 3 lives. Yours, if you're brave enough." He wasn't brave. Not really. Brave men didn't run. Brave men didn't let women vanish without chasing them. Brave men didn't build towers of concrete and power to bury the softness they once touched under a sky filled with stars and promises. But here he was. He looked toward the hallway. The children had rooms now. Beds. Warm light. Quiet. Safety. But safety meant little if they still felt like shadows. He could see it in Jonah's posture, rigid, almost rehearsed. In Elsie's silence, too deep for a child. In the way Milo wouldn't sleep unless his sister was close enough to hear his breathing. Michael felt like an intruder. Not because he hadn't offered shelter, but because he hadn't earned their trust. Not yet. And trust, he had learned, couldn't be bought. It had to be remembered. At 2:14 a.m., he walked into the study. He hadn't entered this room in a decade. Dust clung to everything like cobwebs of regret. The walls were lined with books Amelia used to mention. Ones he promised to read but never did. A small easel stood by the window. Folded. Untouched. Next to it was the last thing she left behind in this apartment, a wooden box, locked but brittle from time. He knelt. The key was where she said it would be, taped beneath the drawer of his desk, next to the scribbled reminder he never erased. Some things are only hidden because we forget to look. The box clicked open. Inside were paintings. Tiny ones. Postcards, watercolors, fabric scraps painted with light and longing. He shuffled through them like someone flipping through the pages of a forgotten life. And then, there it was. The same image. The cherry blossom tree. The man standing beneath it, head bowed. And 3 children with no faces. Only this time, in the corner, scribbled in her soft, almost broken cursive. He won't understand until the youngest calls him Dad. But by then, it'll be too late to pretend he never knew. Michael sat back on his heels, staring at the line until it burned through his eyes and into his lungs. He thought of Milo. The way he looked at him in the car. Not with hope, not yet, but without fear. That was something. He didn't sleep. But the next morning, he made breakfast. Himself. Not the chef. Just scrambled eggs and toast, burnt, uneven, awkward. He didn't know how to cook. But he remembered once, Amelia laughing while flipping pancakes on a hot plate in a tiny rented apartment, saying, "Messy breakfasts mean someone tried." Elsie didn't smile when she saw the plate. But she sat. Jonah stayed standing, arms crossed. Milo grinned and grabbed the toast like it was treasure. Michael poured juice, sat across from them, and didn't speak until the silence settled. "Do you know how your mother painted?" he asked softly. Elsie paused, toast halfway to her mouth. She said she dreamed with her eyes open. Michael nodded. "She gave me a painting once. I didn't understand it." "Did you try to?" "No," he admitted. "I was too busy running from the things I didn't want to feel." Jonah scoffed. Michael turned to him. "You think I'm just some rich guy trying to fix guilt?" The boy didn't answer. But his silence was loud. "I am," Michael said. "And I'm also someone your mother trusted. That's all I have right now. I don't expect that to mean anything to you yet." Jonah stared at him. "She trusted people before. Didn't mean they stayed." Elsie looked down. Milo swung his legs, oblivious. Michael breathed deep. "Then let me earn it. Stay until you decide for yourself." The room was quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet. Later that afternoon, as the children explored the apartment with hesitation, Elsie found the studio. The easel had been wiped clean. The desk open. The box of her mother's paintings left beside it. She stared for a long time. Then pulled out her own sketchbook. She sat on the floor. Drew the man in the painting again. This time with a face. She didn't know what it meant yet, but something about the way he looked at them, soft, uncertain, but there, felt like maybe, just maybe, the ending her mother had painted wasn't the end at all. That night, as Michael stood on the balcony, staring down at the city he once thought he owned, a small voice crept beside him. It was Elsie. She didn't say hello. Didn't look up at him. Just placed her sketchbook on the table between them. "I added something," she said. He opened the page. The man under the cherry blossom tree was holding something now, a child's hand. The child had Milo's curls. Jonah's shoulders. Her own eyes. He blinked, and for a moment, the world tilted. You drew me, he said. She shrugged. I just filled in what was already there. Then she turned and walked away, quiet, deliberate, like her mother used to. Michael sat down, alone again, but somehow not as empty as before. Because something had shifted. A memory had reached forward through time. And trust, shy, battered, bruised, had begun to show its face. Not loudly. Not completely. But just enough to matter. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried that scent of things unresolved. Wet pavement, old stone, and something quieter, more human. Michael stood in the lobby of Lancaster Industries, the name he once thought would vanish after she did. But somehow, it endured, her legacy lingering like the aftertaste of a memory never fully swallowed. Today was different. Not because he had returned to his office after nearly 2 weeks of absence, but because he had brought something with him that no one in this building had ever seen. Children. 3 of them, walking beside him like shadows with heartbeat. He had arranged for Elsie and Jonah to join the company's new after-school program, a quiet space on the top floor meant for the children of board members and executives. A new initiative he'd rushed through the board without explanation. Just a vote. A nod. A closed door. Because he didn't want them hidden. He wanted them visible. But visibility, as he would soon learn, came at a cost. He watched as Jonah surveyed the polished marble floors like a battlefield, eyes darting to the security cameras, the mirrored elevators, the nameplates. Elsie stayed close to her brother, carrying her sketchbook like it was armor. Milo trailed behind, fascinated by everything and afraid of nothing. Michael bent down to adjust Milo's backpack, his hands clumsy with a fatherhood that had arrived without instruction. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Milo nodded. "This place smells like soap." Michael smiled. "That's probably the clean floors." Milo scrunched his nose. "I like our floor better. It smells like toast." The elevator chimed. Michael looked up. Across the lobby, a woman was approaching. Not one of the receptionists. Not someone he recognized from finance. No. She moved with the quiet determination of someone who didn't need to prove she belonged. She wore a navy coat too thin for the weather and carried a small bakery box in her arms. Her hair was pulled back loosely, and a strand had fallen over her cheek. She brushed it away without thinking, and when her eyes met Michael's, everything around him stilled. Elsie saw her first. Her fingers tensed around her sketchbook. Her posture straightened. Michael barely breathed. He didn't know her. Not in name. Not in voice. But his heart. It paused. She approached the reception desk. "Delivery for Mr. Hawthorne," she said, her voice soft, steady. The receptionist blinked. "You're not on the list." The woman held out the small tag. "Special order. He'll recognize it." Michael stepped forward. "It's all right," he said. "I requested it." She turned, surprised, but not startled. Her eyes met his again, and something flickered across her face, recognition, maybe. Or something older. Michael took the box from her hands. Her fingers grazed his. And then, it happened. He froze. His hand touched hers, and for a split second, he felt the texture of something familiar. Not skin. Not temperature. But time. The memory slammed into him so violently, he nearly dropped the box. A flash of watercolor. A rooftop. A slice of apple tart wrapped in napkin. Her laugh. That same coat. The way she whispered, "Some sweetness can't wait." He looked down at the bakery tag. For MH, from the other side of spring. The name of a poem. One Amelia had read to him once, beneath a street lamp in a forgotten alley. A poem about second chances. About lives that only begin after something ends. He looked up again. But the woman was already backing away. "Wait," he said, but his voice cracked halfway through. She paused. He couldn't find the words. Couldn't explain the chaos unfolding in his chest. So instead, he asked, "What's your name?" She tilted her head slightly. "Anna." His lips parted, but nothing came out. She looked at Elsie. At Jonah. At Milo. And then she said the quietest thing anyone had ever said to him. "You found them." And then she turned. Walked away. No drama. No curtain call. Michael stood there, stunned, with the bakery box warm in his hands and a hole blown straight through his heart. Elsie stepped beside him, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you know her?" "I don't," he swallowed. "But I think I once did." Elsie looked up at him, eyes unreadable. "She looked like someone from Mom's sketchbook," she said. Michael turned to her. "You remember those?" "I never forgot." She opened her sketchbook slowly, revealing a page from days earlier. A woman standing in a hallway, holding a box. A boy beside her, peeking from behind her legs. It was almost identical. Michael's hands trembled. "Amelia painted this?" Elsie shook her head. "I did. After a dream." He felt the air leave him. Anna. A stranger with her eyes. Her rhythm. Her presence. And maybe, not a stranger at all. Back in his office, Michael placed the bakery box on the table and opened it. Inside, 4 slices of tart. Cinnamon and apple, just like she used to make. A note folded under wax paper. He picked it up. Some sweetness can't wait. Some memories come back wearing new names. Feed them before they disappear again. There was no signature. Just a red fingerprint at the bottom corner. The same red Amelia had used in her painting of the girl under the swing. He sat down slowly, shaking. Elsie didn't speak. Jonah stood at the window. Milo crawled into his lap, licking cinnamon from his fingers. And for the first time since the painting, since the cherry blossom tree, since the world fell apart and tried to rebuild itself, Michael let his guard fall. Not completely. But enough. To let the sweetness in. Anna didn't come the next day. Michael waited. He even called the bakery listed on the box's tag, but they had no record of an Anna on staff. No one had delivered anything to Lancaster Tower that week. No records. No transaction. No trail. Just like Amelia. He stood at his office window for hours that day, watching the street below as if the rhythm of the city might breathe her name again. But it never did. That evening, as the sun turned the skyline gold and cruelly beautiful, he returned home to find Elsie in the study. She was standing in front of the large canvas Michael had left on the easel. A fresh sheet stretched across it. Blank. But not for long. She was painting. With calm, focused strokes, she brought something to life that hadn't existed in his world for over a decade, a woman in profile, looking over her shoulder, her face hidden by the soft fall of hair, but the outline was unmistakable. He didn't need to ask who it was. "It's her," Elsie said simply. "But older." Michael nodded. "How do you know what she'd look like now?" Elsie didn't look away from the canvas. "I don't. I just feel it." He stepped closer, slowly, as though afraid the moment might vanish if he moved too fast. "Where did you learn to paint like that?" he asked. She shrugged. "She never taught me. But sometimes when I hold the brush, I feel like she's doing it with me." Michael sat down. He said nothing for a long time. Then, "There's something I need to show you." He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and took out a small red string bracelet, frayed and faded. "She tied this around my wrist the night we met." Elsie turned, eyes narrowing at the bracelet. She had one too. Always wore it on her left hand. Said it was lucky. It wasn't just luck, he said. It was a promise. We made it under a street lamp during the worst storm of the year. We tied it and said, if we ever forgot who we were, we'd follow the thread back. Elsie reached out and took the bracelet, her fingers brushing his. You forgot. He exhaled. I buried it. That's not the same, but it might as well be. Jonah entered the room then, silent as always, Milo trailing behind him with crayon marks all over his arms. Jonah spoke first this time. The woman from yesterday. You think she's part of this too? I don't know, Michael replied. But your mother left too many signs for me to ignore anymore. Then why haven't you gone after her? Michael looked down. Because the last time I chased someone I loved, I didn't catch them. And I don't know if I could survive failing again. Milo tugged at his sleeve. She looked like Mom, he said. Everyone turned. Milo pointed to the sketchbook Elsie had left open. A rough drawing of Anna's face, based on memory, soft and warm and distant. She had Mom's eyes, he whispered. But they were sadder. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He opened every folder Amelia had ever left behind. Every sketch, every torn paper, every line she'd ever scribbled on the back of receipts or coffee filters or the margins of books. They were pieces of her, a coded life. A puzzle built with brushstrokes instead of logic. And then, tucked behind the old frame of a faded seascape, he found it. A second letter. It wasn't addressed. No stamp. Just 2 words on the front. If he finds her. He unfolded the paper. Inside was Amelia's handwriting, but it was shakier than the first letter. More rushed. Urgent. If you find the girl with my eyes, tell her the truth. Tell her she wasn't abandoned. She was chosen to carry forward what I couldn't finish. And tell Michael that what he lost wasn't taken, it was passed on. There was no explanation. But Michael didn't need one. He knew now that Anna wasn't just someone who looked like Amelia. She was someone Amelia had known. Someone she had painted. Someone she had prepared for something. And suddenly, all those years of silence didn't feel so empty. They felt orchestrated. Like Amelia hadn't vanished, but retreated, just long enough to leave behind everything needed for someone else to carry the light. The next morning, Michael went back to the gallery where he and Amelia first met. It was long since renovated, rebranded, polished until it forgot what it used to be. But the painting was still there. Tucked into a back hallway, mislabeled and nearly forgotten. The girl under the tree swing. Except now, he saw something he hadn't before. A red string on the girl's wrist. A man's silhouette in the background, almost invisible beneath the shade. And 3 tiny shadows running in the grass behind them. Michael reached out and touched the frame. Amelia, he whispered. What did you do? He turned around. Anna was standing behind him. No coat this time. Just jeans, a faded blouse, and a face no longer guarded. How did you know I'd come here? He asked. I didn't, she replied. But I hoped. They stood there, the painting between them, and for a moment, neither of them needed to speak. Then she said, I'm not her. I never was. I know, Michael said gently. But you carry something she left. And I don't think it's just paint. Anna looked down at her hands. She told me once that love wasn't always about holding on. Sometimes it was about leaving the right things behind. Michael stepped closer. What did she leave behind in you? Anna smiled faintly. The memory of what mattered. Even when I didn't understand it. They walked out together, side by side, not holding hands. Not rushing. Just walking. Back to the children. Back to the painting. Back to a life that was slowly, quietly, bravely, being remembered. It started with a name in a journal. Michael hadn't opened Amelia's old journals in years, not since the accident, not since she vanished. But after seeing Anna again, after reading the second letter tucked behind that forgotten painting, something in him broke open. Or maybe it was finally soft enough to let the truth in. He stayed up all night flipping through the pages, searching for meaning in the places she once buried her fears, her hopes, her silent grief. Her handwriting had always been distinct, gentle but unsteady, like she was racing time itself. On page 78, he found it. Her name will be Anna. I won't give her mine, but I'll give her everything else. Including the truth he ran from. The words hit him like a blow. His breath caught. His fingers trembled. He kept reading. If I don't make it, if the city swallows me whole like it did my mother and every woman before me, let her find him. Let her remind him that some promises echo even after the voice is gone. He dropped the journal. It clattered to the floor like a confession too heavy to hold. Anna wasn't just someone Amelia knew. Anna was hers. Michael sat in the dark, his mind racing back through every detail he had ignored. The way Anna carried herself, not like a stranger to pain, but like someone who had grown up beside it. The bakery tag. The fingerprints on the tart box. The way she looked at the children, not with curiosity, but with familiarity. With recognition. He had met Amelia 16 years ago. They were together for less than 1 year. And then she vanished. But somewhere in that time, between the midnight walks and watercolor sketches, she had carried a secret. A daughter. His daughter. And he had never known. Michael pressed his palms into his eyes until the tears were forced back. The shame burned hot in his chest. He hadn't just failed Amelia. He had failed Anna too, by not being there. By forgetting. By walking away from the one thing that had ever truly mattered. He stood, grabbed the journal, and stormed out of the apartment before sunrise. Anna was waiting at the edge of the park. She was always there in the early mornings. Feeding birds. Sitting beneath the old sycamore tree. She didn't look up when he approached. I read it, he said. She didn't turn. I figured you would. He held the journal in one hand. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure if you'd want to know. Don't say that, he said, voice breaking. Don't you dare say that. She finally looked at him. Her eyes weren't angry. Just tired. And far too familiar. I grew up without answers, she said. Amelia was everything. She never told me who you were. Only that if I ever needed to find the pieces of her I didn't understand, I'd have to look in your direction. Michael swallowed hard. Did she ever talk about me? Anna gave a soft, almost bitter laugh. Only when she was painting. That's how I knew. She never said your name. But every time her hands shook, she'd pick up a brush. And every time she painted that tree, or the man beneath it. I knew she was remembering you. Michael sat beside her, the journal heavy in his lap. Why didn't she tell me? Anna looked down at her shoes. Because she knew you weren't ready. He didn't argue. He couldn't. She died alone, Anna continued. In a city clinic, under a false name. She was sick for months before she let anyone find out. By then, it was too late. Michael closed his eyes. I was there, Anna whispered. I held her hand. And the last thing she said to me was, he will come. One day. And when he does, don't punish him. Remind him. Michael's hands clenched into fists. I would have been there. I swear. Anna nodded slowly. I know that now. They sat in silence for a while, birds hopping along the grass beside them, a breeze cutting through the still morning like a thread pulling two distant fabrics together. Why the bakery? He asked. It's the one place I knew she wanted to own. She said it would be called the other side of spring. Said it would be filled with all the things she couldn't say in words. Michael gave a sad smile. I remember. She told me sweetness doesn't last long, but it saves the bitter things from swallowing us whole. She told me the same thing, Anna said. The day she let me try apple tart for the first time. They both laughed, but it was the kind of laughter that trembles at the edge of tears. I want to know you, he said suddenly. Not because I have to. Because I want to. Anna turned to him. And the others? Elsie. Jonah. Milo. They're not yours. They're mine now, he said. She left them with me. And I don't know if I'm worthy of that. But I'm trying. Anna studied him for a long moment. Then she said, they love her. I know. And they deserve to keep her memory the way she gave it to them. I promise, he said. I won't rewrite her story. I'll carry it. The way she asked me to. The way I should have years ago. Anna nodded. Then she pulled something from her pocket. A small locket. Inside was a photo, faded, blurred at the corners. Amelia, smiling, with a baby in her arms. Michael was asleep beside them, unaware the moment was even being captured. I found it in her things after she passed, Anna said. She never threw it away. Not once. Michael touched the glass gently. His heart broke again. But this time, it didn't fall apart. It opened. Because for the first time since losing Amelia, something was being rebuilt. Not erased. Not replaced. But remembered. And reconnected. The rain returned the next morning, soft and steady, like it too had been waiting for the right moment to fall. The city was quiet beneath its rhythm. And inside a small room of Michael's penthouse, the three children sat around the breakfast table, uneaten toast cooling on their plates. Elsie stared at the painting propped beside the window. Jonah read the same sentence in his book for the 5th time. Milo, unusually still, cradled the red string bracelet in his palms. Michael entered without a word. He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching them, not as a benefactor, not as a man trying to redeem his past, but as someone who finally understood what it meant to show up and stay. I want to tell you something, he said. They looked up. It's about your mother. Jonah tensed. You didn't know her. Michael walked in slowly and took a seat. I did. A long time ago. Long before you were born. Long before I was anything worth remembering. He set the locket Anna had given him on the table. Opened it. The children leaned in. There was Amelia, smiling, warm, holding a baby in her arms, and beside her, a younger version of Michael, asleep in the sunlight. Elsie's breath caught. That's her, she whispered. That's our mom. Jonah's eyes narrowed. You said you didn't know who our father was. I didn't, Michael said. I truly didn't. Not until 2 days ago. Elsie blinked. You're saying? Michael shook his head. No. I'm not your father by blood. But your mother, she chose me. She painted me into your story before you even existed. And now I understand why. He looked at them, one by one. Because she knew I needed you as much as you might one day need me. Jonah crossed his arms. That's not good enough. Michael nodded. You're right. It's not. So I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to earn something your mother never forced me to deserve, but gave anyway. Elsie looked at the painting again. She always said someone would come. That someone would see us. Really see us. I didn't see anything clearly back then, Michael admitted. I left her. I let her disappear. And when I tried to find her, it was too late. The silence grew heavier. Until Milo spoke. Do you miss her? Michael didn't hesitate. Every single day. Milo nodded like that was the answer he needed. And then Elsie reached for the locket. Held it. Studied it. I always thought you were just another man trying to feel better about being rich. Michael gave a small smile. You're not wrong. But you're more than that too, aren't you? I hope so. She handed the locket back. And then said, without looking at him, she used to cry at night when she thought we were asleep. I think part of her always wanted to come back to you. Michael exhaled slowly. And I think I gave her too many reasons not to. Later that afternoon, Anna returned. She brought a box with her. Not pastries this time. Memories. Journals. Letters. Paintings. And at the very bottom, a video camera, old and dusty. Michael held it like it might fall apart. She recorded things, Anna said. Not for herself. For us. For you. They sat in the living room, the children on the floor, Anna curled in the corner of the couch, arms wrapped around her knees. Michael placed the camera on the table and pressed play. The screen blinked to life. And there she was. Amelia. Not as a memory. Not as a painting. But breathing. Laughing. Real. She was sitting on a blanket in a park, the sunlight dancing through the trees above her. I don't know if you'll ever see this, she said. But if you do, Michael, stop running. She laughed. You always ran when it got too real. I think that's why I never told you about Anna. I didn't want to trap you. I wanted you to choose. She turned the camera toward a small bundle beside her. I chose, she whispered. I chose her. I chose to keep going, even when I knew it might mean doing it alone. The screen flickered. Then shifted. Another clip. A hospital bed. Her face thinner now. Her eyes tired. If this is the last thing you hear from me, remember this, I forgave you a long time ago. I don't want your money. I don't want your guilt. I want you to love something beyond your own fear. Her voice cracked. And if by some miracle you find the children I loved after you, hold them. Tell them I didn't leave because I didn't want them. I left because I didn't want the world to hurt them through me. The screen went black. No music. No ending. Just silence. Michael stared at it for a long time. Then he stood. Walked to the hallway. Took down the framed certificate that had always hung there, his first billion-dollar deal. He replaced it with the painting Amelia left behind. The man under the tree. 3 children beside him. And a woman in the wind, watching, but never leaving. Anna approached him. He turned to her. You said she passed alone. Anna shook her head. I said she passed quietly. She wasn't alone. Michael swallowed. I think, maybe she knew this would happen, she said. That one day you'd stop running. He looked at her, tears at the edge of his voice. Do you hate me for not knowing you? Anna stepped closer. I used to. And now? Now I see what she saw. And it hurts less. They stood there in silence. Then Milo's voice called out from the kitchen. Dad! Michael turned sharply. It was the first time. The first word. He walked into the room slowly, and Milo threw his arms around his legs like he'd done it 100 times before. Jonah and Elsie watched from the hallway, not speaking. But they didn't stop him. And in that moment, Michael knew. He hadn't just adopted 3 children. He'd been given back the pieces of the life he had once thrown away. One name at a time. The next morning, the city woke under gray clouds and wind, but inside the penthouse, something had shifted. The air felt warmer. Not because of the weather. But because of what hadn't been said the night before, and what no one had tried to take back. Michael stood alone in the kitchen, stirring oatmeal on the stove. Not a chef. Not a staff member. Just him. Jonah walked in first. Quiet. No eye contact. Michael didn't push. "Morning," he said. Jonah gave a small grunt in return but sat at the table without being asked. That was something. Then Elsie entered. Her sketchbook under her arm, hair still wet from her morning shower. She looked at the bowl he placed in front of her. "Too much cinnamon." "You sound like your mother," he replied gently. She blinked, but didn't complain. Milo ran in last, dragging a toy car and nearly knocking over the chair in his path. He climbed into his seat and looked up with his usual wide grin. "Is today Saturday?" "It's Wednesday," Michael said. Milo's face dropped. "Oh. That's boring." Michael chuckled. "Only if we let it be." He sat with them. For bowls. For spoons. For seats filled for the first time, not by chance, not by law, not by charity, but by choice. "Do you guys want to do something different today?" he asked. Elsie looked up. "Like what?" "I thought we could visit her." The room stilled. Jonah's spoon paused midair. Michael continued, voice steady. "Amelia. Your mother." No one spoke. Then Elsie nodded once. Jonah didn't argue. And that was enough. They drove in silence, the car quiet but not heavy. Michael held the wheel tighter than usual. He didn't trust drivers for this. This wasn't a trip he could delegate. The cemetery was still. No sound but whine through trees and the gentle groan of iron gates. Michael parked beside the hill where her stone sat. Simple. No flowers. No frame. Just a name and a year. She had wanted it that way. Elsie was the first to step out. She didn't cry. She walked to the stone and knelt. Brushed leaves away with the sleeve of her jacket. Jonah followed, slower. His hands clenched. His lips aligned. But he stood behind his sister, not looking away. Milo hung back by Michael's side, holding his hand tighter than usual. Michael knelt last. His voice was low. "I should have come sooner," he said to the stone. "I should have been here the day they buried you. But I was too afraid. I thought if I showed up too late, it wouldn't matter anymore." He looked up at the gray sky. "I was wrong. It always matters." He pulled something from his coat pocket. The bracelet. Frayed red thread. Still knotted. He laid it gently on the stone, just beneath her name. "You gave me more than I deserved," he said. "And I'm still trying to understand why. But I promise you, I won't waste it this time." Jonah stepped forward, surprising everyone. He pulled a small toy, one of Milo's cars, from his own jacket. He placed it next to the bracelet. "She always liked when we shared," he muttered. Elsie took out a folded piece of paper. A drawing. Of Amelia, beneath the cherry blossom tree, arms wide open. She placed it between them and the stone. "We brought you home," she whispered. Milo finally let go of Michael's hand and waddled over, placing a small flower, half wilted, on the grass. "Hi, Mommy," he said. The wind picked up. And for a moment, it felt like she was there. Watching. Listening. Smiling in that quiet, knowing way she always did. That night, they returned home different. Lighter. Not healed. But no longer cracked open. Michael stood at the balcony long after they went to bed. Anna joined him after a while, 2 mugs of tea in her hands. He took one. "Thank you." "For what?" "For staying," he said. She didn't answer right away. "I thought about leaving," she said. "After I told you the truth." "Why didn't you?" She looked out at the lights. "Because the truth isn't the end. It's just the first real thing that doesn't lie to you." He nodded. "You sound like her." "I hear her when I talk," Anna admitted. Sometimes I think, I'm not my own voice anymore. I'm just the echo she left behind. Michael looked at her. You're more than an echo. Anna sipped her tea. You really believe that? I do now. They stood in silence for a while, the city below them alive, but far away. Then Michael said, I want to start over. With all of them. Not just the legal part. The real part. I want to be present. The way I wasn't with her. Anna turned to him. Then be the kind of man who shows up, she said. Even when no one claps. Even when no one thanks you. I'm not sure I know how. Learn. The word was soft. But firm. And it landed deep. The next day, Michael woke early. He made pancakes. Burned the first 3. But he kept trying. He walked Elsie to her new school program himself, held her hand until she let go. He helped Jonah fix the strap on his backpack, and said, I'm proud of you, before the boy even knew what to do with the words. He carried Milo into his afternoon nap, humming something he remembered Amelia once sang, off-key, off-tempo, but full of heart. And that evening, when Anna came by for dinner, she found 4 plates already set. Candles lit. And a man in an apron trying to read a recipe through flour-smudged glasses. Smells like toast, she teased. He grinned. That's cinnamon. Again. They all laughed. Not because everything was fixed. But because the door had stayed open. And someone had chosen to walk through. It was Sunday. The first warm day after weeks of wind and rain. The kind of sunlight that didn't ask for attention, it simply existed, quiet and golden, resting gently on the leaves like it had nowhere else to be. Michael stood at the edge of the park with a folded blanket under one arm, a basket in the other. He looked ordinary. No security detail. No boardroom nerves. Just a man waiting for his family to catch up. Anna arrived first, wearing a sundress that fluttered around her knees like the wind had been waiting to see her smile. Her hair was loose today, catching the light the way Amelia's once did. You're early, she said. I didn't want to miss a second. She smirked. You really are trying. Trying is all I have, he replied. A shout cut through the air behind them. Milo. Running full speed, arms outstretched, a crayon in one hand, a smudge of jelly on his chin. Jonah followed close behind, pretending not to race him. Elsie walked last, her sketchbook clutched close, head tilted to the side like she was composing the light around her. They settled near the hill. The same one where Amelia had once painted a tree in full bloom. Today, that tree stood above them, just starting to bud, its branches reaching like fingers trying to remember what it felt like to hold color again. Michael spread the blanket. They ate. Laughed. Talked about nothing and everything. Jonah told a joke that didn't land, but Milo laughed anyway. Elsie sketched the sunlight as it hit Anna's cheek. And Anna, for once, didn't notice, or maybe she pretended not to, because it felt nice to be seen. As the afternoon settled, Michael stood and walked a few steps away, watching them from a distance. Anna joined him after a while. You ever think about what would have happened if you'd stayed? She asked. Michael nodded. Every day. She didn't speak for a long time. Then, almost inaudibly, she said, she never blamed you. Not really. I blamed me, he whispered. Anna looked down. I think part of her hoped you'd come back. Even if she told herself not to. He turned to her. I did come back. Just not in time. No, she said. But maybe, just in time for the next part. Michael's throat tightened. Does it still count? Anna's eyes were steady. It does if you stay. A few feet away, Milo stood and began running up the hill. His legs were too short, his balance unsteady. He fell once, twice, but laughed each time and got back up. Jonah shouted at him to slow down. Elsie kept sketching, unfazed. Anna smiled. Michael watched. And something in his chest, something frozen for over a decade, broke loose. "I think I love them," he said. Anna looked at him, surprised. "That's the first time you've said it out loud." "I know," he said. "But I've felt it for a while." He took a deep breath, eyes never leaving the children. "It's not loud, the way it was with Amelia. It's quieter. Slower. It builds in the smallest places. When Milo asks me if bees have moms. When Jonah lets me tie his shoes even though he knows how. When Elsie laughs without checking to see if I'm watching." Anna said nothing. He continued. "And when you show up with nothing to prove and still stay." She turned to him, eyes soft. "You're doing okay, Michael." He chuckled. "I don't want to do okay. I want to do right." A breeze moved through the park, lifting hair and hearts. Milo came barreling down the hill, arms out, and crashed into Michael's legs like a hug with too much momentum. He looked up with a wide grin. "Guess what?" "What?" "I made a wish." Michael knelt. "Oh yeah? What did you wish for?" Milo leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper. "That you'd be my forever dad." Michael's breath caught. He pulled the boy close, hugging him tightly. No words. No promises. Just everything he had, wrapped in the silence of that moment. Behind them, Elsie had stopped sketching. Jonah had turned toward them too, watching, arms folded, but his eyes softer than they'd been in weeks. Anna stood quietly beside the tree, the wind lifting strands of her hair like memories still in motion. Michael looked around. And for the first time in his life, he didn't feel the urge to run. Not from pain. Not from love. Not from himself. He sat back on the blanket, Milo in his lap, and looked at the people around him. A girl who had learned to hope in silence. A boy who had fought the world with fists made of fear. A child who still believed love was the default setting. And a woman who carried the voice of someone gone, but never forgotten. He pulled them all closer. And in that soft hush of late afternoon light, something invisible clicked into place. Not a finish line. Not a victory. But a beginning. They stayed there until the sky turned orange, until the tree above them no longer cast a shadow but a memory. And as they packed up to leave, Elsie handed Michael the latest page of her sketchbook. A watercolor. The cherry blossom tree, in full bloom. A man standing beneath it. 3 children around him. And off to the side, a woman watching from behind the branches, half in shadow, half light, smiling at the life she'd once imagined and now, finally, left in good hands. Michael looked up, eyes full. "Is that me?" Elsie nodded. "And is that her?" "No," she whispered. "That's you too." He didn't understand. But he would. Eventually. Because love, like art, doesn't always make sense at first. But when it's real, when it's chosen, it stays.